us another day. Only to scream into the night. Nothing ever tries to change, even if I want to realize. 'Cause I've been sitting here, same old ways, thinking of about the same mistake. Darling, when you go away, it won't be as simple for you.
Yo, guys, it's Old Man G here, back again with another episode, I guess, of the Red Devil Weekly Q&A. I'm trying to obviously be a bit consistent with this, but I'll just before we go, I'll just say just a few things. The first thing for those is, before you to channel, if you're new to the channel, sorry, like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter at X and smash that notification button. Plays Manchester United news and more. That's the first thing. The second thing is that, unfortunately, I have broken a bone in my right hand. My right hand is my most dominant hand. So I apologize if things are a bit slow, things are a bit disjointed. I have quite a few shows lined up. I was going to do a preview, obviously Hojlund more in detail video this weekend. Things might be kind of adjusted based on that. So we'll take things from there. And then lastly, like I said, because I'm just feeling a little bit under the weather, depending obviously how many people watching me viewing, might kind of wrap things up early, if that makes any sense, So, but yeah, let's just get straight into. Also got a few topics to talk about: Hojlund, Amrabat, Greenwood, the potentially United's best starting 11, So, but I'm joined by Tom, who's going to be hopefully really good help regarding hosting today. So yeah, Tom, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good, G, and yeah, everything obviously just everything. And once again, thanks for having me on again. And yeah, anybody who's in the comments or post stream, like, share, subscribe as always to Red Devil Studio.
Appreciate it, buddy. Right, okay, so let's just get on to the first first topic, really, and that's obviously about Hojlund. It's obviously he's completed his medical today. I suspect Manchester United are going to announce him before or around the also, just as I'm not on camera today because of the hand thing, so just for those that are asking. But yeah, just regarding obviously the Hojlund, he's completed his medical today, and of course he's going to be at the probably starting 11. Not starting 11, but probably announced around the time of starting 11 against Lens. So I'll ask you, sort of, Tom, how are you feeling about this Hojlund deal? Because obviously we spent quite a lot for this guy. So what are your thoughts?
Well, really and ultimately, I think it's a different profile of signing that a lot of Manchester United fans are used to. It's a different profile, I guess, of player that United have chased for quite a lot of the summer, trying to get this deal over the line. Like, you had personal terms that were agreed in April sort of time around the FA Cup, or May sort of time for it. Like, this deal's been in the pipeline for a long time. So Manchester United always had the idea of signing Rasmus Hojlund. And as I said previously on the last stream when we were discussing Hojlund, was that Manchester United had tracked him ever since he'd left FC Copenhagen in Denmark as a free agent, and he went to Austria, from Austria to Atalanta in Italy, and now to Manchester United. And they've followed his development and progression all the way through. And Erik ten Hag, when he was at Ajax, reportedly in those sort of figuring times, around about a year and a half, 2 years ago, Rasmus Hojlund was a player that Ajax were supposedly monitoring to bring in as a young player when he left as a free agent from FC Copenhagen. So there was that link from the manager's perspective with the player, but also the club's perspective, and the vision was there really. And it's a different profile signing based upon, I think everybody really, Manchester United fan, was expecting the club to pursue Harry Kane, and if they didn't get the player, they didn't get the player, but put some pressure on Tottenham and see if Harry Kane would jump ship really and force a hand, and potentially force a move through. But United didn't decide to go down that avenue based upon what they'd heard in terms of the price through intermediaries, but also that Daniel Levy had smacked a extra £40 million to sell to any Premier League club, irrespective of even if they're in London. It was upwards of £120 million that any Premier League club was going to have to pay. And it was reasonably around £100 million that it was prepared to accept from clubs within Europe. And obviously Bayern Munich have put in a final proposal for Kane as well. So United going for Hojlund, it's a different profile. It's not the superstar player in terms of ready-made, but Manchester United feel that he is one of those hidden gems really, and that even though they've had to pay a little bit more than they had preferred initially to want to pay for him, they feel like they've got a superstar in the making, and they trust the coach. They trust Erik ten Hag to get the best out of all of his new signings, irrespective of Rasmus Hojlund. But they expect the investment that they've made into this young player. They want to see the big development of him. And it's very, I guess, like for like of how maybe other clubs would do business. It's not the finished article, but it's a work in progress player. And Rasmus Hojlund, I think, will definitely be one of those work in progress players. And just, I guess, a bit on the sort of announcement side of things, he had some complications. It was 2 days ago. Nothing that was, hampering the deal or anything. He'd already signed the contract to be a United player and things like that. But the Premier League had stalled on actually signing off the paperwork because they had an overload in terms of getting the schedules ready for the first match day of the Premier League season. So that took a little bit of time, but also the work permit and visa situation took a couple more days than it had done. And as far as I'm aware, he's been given work permit. He's been given the necessary documentation, visas, so that he can register and be a Manchester United player. And it's expected that it will be unveiled in a similar Rafael Varane, Casemiro sort of style, go onto the pitch before the game, hold the shirt up, photographs, a bit of PR and media side of things, and then from there he'll watch the game from the stands as many other players had done. Varane did it for one of the games and Casemiro. So, and then following on from the game, he'll be formally introduced to the squad and Erik ten Hag and everything from there. And then for, I would say, at least at the start of the season, the Wolves game, he would have at least had 1 week to get to know his teammates, but also the manager's sort of set up and play style for him. And whether he will be in that starting lineup for Wolves, I don't know, because he's not had a lot of preparation with Manchester United, that is anyway. But the one thing that I can safely say for anybody who's wondering what sort of personality he is, he's a very energetic sort of character. That's the one thing that I've been described. He's very energetic in terms of that he brings off a lot of positivity for people around him. He likes a laugh, a joke, and he's somebody that I think some players who have had that partnership with a number 9 in the past, for example, Jadon Sancho is the best one. He had the partnership with Erling Haaland, and the two of them, goals and assists between the two of them as a pair, they were brilliant from that sort of things. But in terms of him, Hojlund as a player, he's the sort of character and personality that will have good relations and good friendships within the squad. And he's somebody that if you're a wide player, you're an attacking midfielder, that you're going to create chances for the number 9, you're going to have a very good understanding and partnership between the two of you. And just as a final note, I guess, on him, is the one thing that I understood from when I spoke to some colleagues in Italy was that they picked up for a 20-year-old his actual understanding of the game. And people will say there is that raw element to him based upon his age and the statistics, but he's a player that doesn't have a lot of fear. He'll go into 50-50 challenges against 6'5" centre halves. Even if he doesn't end up coming out with the ball, he'll put his body through the man if it means that he gets the ball and his team get on the advantage from transition. That's the sort of player that he is. So in terms of personality, characteristics, and him as a player, I think it suits more of what Erik ten Hag's been trying to instill at Manchester United, which is more of a team environment where you have a lot more team players rather than you have superstar individuals and match winners that not necessarily have that high profile, but that want to actually play as part of a unit and as a team, as opposed to, oh, I want to go for the golden boot every single season. It's more about the team environment, and that's the sort of players I think that you can look at from really any window that he's brought in from players. He's always brought in team players. He's never, aside from maybe Casemiro, he's never really brought in a superstar in many respects. So I think it's a smart signing from both sides of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for Hojlund as well, I mean, he's moved every single club. He's moved from Copenhagen to Austria, then to Atalanta in Italy, and now to Manchester United. It's quite a leap for somebody who's that young of a profile, but that just shows the potential and such a high raising development that he's had as a player.
Thanks for that, Tom. Really appreciate it. And big up everyone in the chat. Really appreciate it. For those who tuned in, like I said, a little bit slow today because of a broken wrist in the right hand. So things are going to be a bit slow. So you're probably going to hear more of Tom for this show. But big up to those jumping, especially Stephanie and Mo. I see you guys in the chat. Stephanie question says, question for both. Why don't we close the window before the season starts, not on September the 1st? If I remember, I think that what's his name? Before Arsene Wenger left Arsenal or sacked, whatever way, but we were doing that. We're doing that. But then what happened was that it only worked for it was only the Premier League doing it. So you have to have an agreement. So the Premier League were closing the transfer window before, was it the 2nd of August? But everyone else was still signing players till September. So obviously it still didn't help the situation because there's so many players. Let's look the case in point in the Saudi League, for example. So the team or players are still going to be destabilized because there's still going to be offers from other clubs. Now obviously throwing Saudi Arabia into the mix, which can obviously destabilize the squad. So I think they end up scrapping it after 1 year because it was it doesn't actually make a difference because unless everyone in Europe and everyone across the world, in theory, agrees to a single deadline, people are still just going to be able to, sign players. I think that's the reason. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Tom, but yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah. And really, it makes the productiveness of a transfer window very open because you can have a couple of games like Manchester United did, for example, and then at the start of last season, they lost to Brighton at home. They then went away and got battered completely by Brentford. And then following on from the game, they brought 2 signings in Antony and Casemiro for the prices that they did. They overpaid to bring them in at such late notice and short notice. But those players then, for the time being, especially Casemiro, the impact that he had from when he actually settled into the squad, and it took him a couple of weeks to do so, to get up to speed, it improved drastically on the run up to Christmas. So I do think that, the September the 1st deadline and shut on the window, I think it's a good idea based upon it still gives clubs opportunities to get deals over the line. And even in saying that, it's also good based upon you're settling in the same sort of window as Europe as well. So European clubs will finish business at the similar time that English clubs will do based upon their windows. Obviously, it's different because of the sort of timelines and how their leagues work. And if they made rule changes, in comparison to the Premier League, then there's nothing the Premier League can do about that, unless if they wanted to change theirs. But I like the format as it is now because it gives clubs more time to operate in the window. And look, like you said, there's always that opportunity towards an end of a window where you have the Kylian Mbappe situation where you might have a club that's done hardly any business at all this summer, and then one of the world's best players comes on the market towards the end of the window. For example, let's say the Kylian Mbappe thing didn't blow up yet, and let's say after the first round of Premier League games, it then blew up then, and a lot of the clubs hadn't made major investments in terms of players. A lot of Premier League clubs would probably go and chase Kylian Mbappe for the final hours of the window. And whether they'd get him or not, it'd be a scenario that a lot of people would tell. But I think it's a good bit of business based upon it gives clubs more time to operate. And I guess it does provide that security to clubs that if maybe they just need more time with paperwork or they need more time to convince a player to come to their club or whatever, it gives them that added security from that side of things as well.
Cool. I think Mo has a question here saying, from what you've gathered about his character, so I was even specific to Tom, so you can talk about the character. Do you think the price tag and weight of the badge will be an issue? Thinking of other high potential players who sign like Memphis, and that's a fair point. You know, so I get almost like a Memphis vibe from this, not because I think he, but it's just that the only thing I'll say is that I do prefer Ten Hag's style of play, as we're seeing that, than I did Van Gaal.
Louis Van Gaal, yeah.
Van Gaal, so, but what do you think about this?
Yeah, I think in terms of pressure and stuff, look, we're not going to be hypocrites to say it. Like, there has been young players that have come to Manchester United for big money, maybe in that sort of generation of time, and they've not worked out. And look, it takes a lot, I think, for this kid, considering that he's so young. He's already travelled and lived in 3 countries at the age of 20 as a football player. I mean, he lived in his native of Denmark, Copenhagen. Went to Austria. There's 2 countries, Italy, and then he's coming to England now. That's 4 countries for a 20-year-old. And every single step that he's taken, he's always shown a little bit of development and improvement. And people can look at stats and think, wow, that's, he's not done so great. 9 goals in Serie A and 24 professional goals when he's only 20 years old and so forth. People can, make these assumptions. And look, you can have people on Twitter who can go about and have a laugh about it. But the thing is that in the market today, when you're buying a number 9, there isn't a lot of good ready-made number 9s that you can get for less than 85 to 100 million, really. And Manchester United don't have that sort of budget to pay for one of those profile of number 9s. So they've gone for, a player who's just below that category in terms of valuation, but they're gambling on the potential of this player to turn into one of those £100 million superstar signings. And the problem, I guess, from United's perspective was always that they felt that PSG wasn't really their competitor when they were getting a deal for Hojlund. They was looking more at the market and thinking there must be other Premier League clubs that are watching this young kid, surely. And even at the price tag that he was being quoted at, it's not always about the price. It's always about the profile of player. That's how clubs look
I'll
at
even
it.
I'll even add, obviously, what you're watching, like, remember we did get Ahmad from Atalanta.
True.
Remember, so, and of course, yes, so it's, and from what I've seen of Ahmad, we saw it in Sunderland, and still think the guy can ball. It's just that he just picked up an injury, and hopefully he'll be sort of back. So even if Ahmad, like, I don't think there's any United fan who wants to say that Ahmad doesn't have like talent or potential. If anything, there were people last season going like he's better than Sancho to a certain extent even at the time. So if Atalanta are thinking, obviously charge us to pay like 35, which at the time, I think it was 35 at the time, was quite a lot for Ahmad, then and you see his talent, then it stands to reason that there must be something about this Hojlund kid, so there must be something at least, so, but, I take your point. So it's like any signing, it's a risk.
Mhm.
I think that the reality is, Mo, is that a lot of, Manchester United, Chelsea, for example, have spent I know they spent the same as United this summer, but they spent closer to it. It's just that they've not made a big money signing unless they sign Caicedo. But actually, if you think about the amounts of players they've spent, money that they've spent in small increments on Nkunku and all the strikers and Jackson and even this new guy, so it actually probably isn't that dissimilar to United spending. But I think the issue is that because they're all 20 million, 30 million small budget kind of sort of signings, people kind of are kind of dismissing it and will look at United and put more pressure on United to do stuff, So, but we'll see what happens. Moving on, Ten Hag looking for team ethic over star players, so not sure Kane will be United next season. What do you guys think? His wages dealing with Levy, etc. I mean, obviously I'll bring this to Tom. So, but from what I can see, because I'm scrolling for Fabrizio right now. Obviously, last time we checked, Bayern Munich have put in their offer for Harry Kane. I don't know whether, I think there's still silence over it. I'm just looking at, I don't see anything that says that Spurs have rejected it as of yet, unless like Tom, you have something to update us. But essentially what I'm saying is that if Levy rejects this Bayern bid, then to be honest, I think that United will be first in line to get Kane next season. Because I don't get the impression from Kane that he's someone who necessarily wants to leave England. And if United are in a better position team-wise after this season than last season, like when the Champions League, we're progressing, maybe won a trophy again, who knows? Harry Kane will be like, right, okay, I can get into this. I can still win trophies, still break the record, and still be in England. So, if anything, I think that, the two people that are going to lose out are Bayern Munich, because it looks like they might not pay what Levy wants. Levy, who's going to let his player go for free, which I don't quite understand because, you could make the argument that, like, what if Tottenham lose Harry Kane? There's a good chance they're not going to make CL football this season. And I guess if you think about it, when you think about the money they get from CL football, qualifying for the Champions League, CL football, and also the Premier League position, that might equal 100 million anyway. So maybe Daniel Levy's thinking, yeah, but it's tomato, as it were. So because at the end of the day, like we want Champions League football, we want to get the money from that, and we've got a new stadium and Harry Kane. I don't know. I would sell him still, but yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that, Tom? Oh, Tom is still. Sorry, 2 seconds. Oh, yes, Tom will be back in a second, so I'll come to the next questions then. So we'll come back to that. Wasn't Martial 50 million in 2014? He gets criticized, but still scored. Yeah, I think I think that I think the criticism that Martial gets is more the fact that he's just so injury prone. But I don't think anyone would say that Martial is like crap. Like a crap. Sometimes he can be inconsistent, so but I don't think you see anyone that says, oh, Martial couldn't ball or is crap. I think the big issue with Martial was just his injuries. I think that's the biggest thing. And as you said, 88 goals in 298 is great. I think that obviously Hojlund, because he has been bought as a number 9, I think that there'll be more expected from him. But we'll see what happens. More than 30 plus people watching, guys. Thank you. Make sure you like, and subscribe. I was going to make this like a fairly simple show, but there's a lot of you guys watching, so I appreciate it. Get your questions in. Tom will be back in a second, so I will just address them while he comes. Apologies, I'm a bit slow. Sheik Gavian says, Manchester United are convinced that they will get a deal done when to sell the club to the. Is that no? Let me see. Is that Neil Custis? I don't really trust Custis from the Sun. Like he tends to put a lot of like takes out there. That he's like one of those guys where like he puts takes out there, and then like a broken clock, sometimes he's right, and then he gets credibility that way. But he's said a lot of stuff that like, yeah, like it's either self-explanatory or not. So obviously people will will look at that, and if he's right, then people go, oh, Neil Custis he's great. But yeah, I would take anything post in the sun with a pinch of salt. Mike Keegan, at least I can give him props because he was the one that kind of broke a lot of the Qatari stuff first, so I can rely on him. But I'm looking at his Twitter page as well. Has he said anything? I don't see anything on his Twitter page. So unless someone is I don't see anything on his Twitter page to say that what he said, aside from some nonsense about Harry Maguire returning to the first team, and the improvements in the first team. So who knows? Moving on here. Pete and Philip says Isak, Hojlund equals battle the Scandinavian strikers in the Premier League. That is true. That is true. It's actually a good question, actually, because maybe we'll have a show about this, about strikers and the dearth of them, because there was a time when there were a lot of strikers and number 9s available, up and coming, and now there doesn't appear to be. There doesn't appear to be at all. Much like I think it was like a couple of years back, there was a centre-back crisis where people were like, when Liverpool signed Van Dijk, where there were not that many good quality centre-backs around. I think, Company and so on. So centre-backs went for a huge amount. Now, especially because the likes of Suarez and Benzema, Ronaldo, etc., basically left Europe, there's actually not a lot of quality number 9s. Haaland obviously leads the way, so he's a goal-scoring freak. But if you think about it, at second to Haaland, how many other good number 9s are there really? Harry Kane, yes, okay, we'll give you that. But outside of that, who else? Okay, maybe the Gonzalo Ramos guy that PSG are going to sign. Had a good World Cup, but to be honest, I don't think he's done that much after the World Cup. Obviously, Hojlund is potential. Lukaku, enough said. That's all I can think about. So for whatever reason, and obviously Isak, as you said, so for whatever reason, the Scandinavian countries are producing the strikers, because England, if you think about it, aside from Kane, maybe Everson, Ferguson of Brighton, Ivan Toney, you can maybe throw into the conversation, I guess. Philip, I seen your comment. Osimhen, yeah, obviously Osimhen at Napoli. But the point I'm trying to make is that, even if you look at the Premier League right now, aside from Kane and Haaland, who else really? Like I said, with the exception of maybe Ivan Toney for Brentford, but he's not going to play till January. Arsenal don't have a consistent striker. Liverpool relying a lot on what's his name? The Uruguayan guy. I've forgotten his name. Chelsea just seem to be making different striking decisions. So yeah, it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one, definitely. I'll say, Tom, are you back? Are you still away? Okay, I think he's still away. Okay, Hummels back. Is there any truth? No, in answer to Bridget, yeah, I don't think so. I've gone to his Twitter page, and like I said, I would take what Neil Custer says with a grain of salt. Oh, Tom's back. Darwin Núñez, that's it, Matty. Yeah, Darwin Núñez. Right, let me go back again, because Tom just where was it? There was a question Stephanie asked. Yeah, just about Kane. What do you think about just about Kane and where he's going to be? Is there any reports? Because last time I heard, Bayern have put the bid in, but do you know anything regarding if Levy's going to accept it, or whether maybe he'll stay at Spurs and then United actually might be in a position to sign him? Because we know that Ten Hag said that he wanted a senior and a young striker. So is it possible that if Harry Kane stays at Spurs, that United get him for free next season? And what do you think?
The way I'd look at it really is that I think with Harry Kane, he's come to the sort of conclusion where the thing with a player like Harry Kane is, although it might not seem it, he has a lot of people around him. And he's the sort of character and personality that he has a lot of people and a lot of voices in his head, but he can't make the full decision of what he wants to do himself. That's the understanding that I have around him as a player. Him as the overall person, he's a family man. He's a person that he thinks family before football, before anything. And if his family aren't on board with something, he discusses anything with them. For example, him and his brother's his football agent, before he even signed a new contract at Spurs and there was that opportunity to go to Manchester City, he discussed with his family, would you want to move up to Manchester? We'd still be in England. We could still educate our kids the same way and so forth. He didn't have baby number 3 on the way by then. He only had 2 children. And at that point, he had some sort of agreement with his family that let's go for it. Let's try and get that move. And there was a hesitation and a twitch from Harry Kane to go to Manchester City when they started putting in the bids for him. But the bids didn't match what Daniel Levy wanted. And he still had, I think it was 2 or 3 years on that original contract. So it was very hard to get him at the time, whereas now it's more of a complicated situation because he only has 1 year left. And the thing that I will almost know for certain is that it's very unlikely that he will sign a contract extension at Spurs. He had the same situation, like I say, a couple of years ago where he needed a contract renewal. He played the first couple of games under a new manager, re-signed a new contract, and the following, towards the end of the season collapsed and Spurs were an absolute calamity. They didn't make top 4. I think they only narrowly scraped Conference League with Mourinho. And from there, it wasn't a good place that he felt his future, that he'd signed up for his future. He didn't feel like what the club had sold him as the future was being met with his ambitions for the future. And he feels like he has to win trophies. And that's the first time that I've ever heard that out of sort of his inner circle and the people around Harry Kane is he feels now he has to win trophies because being the all-time Premier League goal scorer, yes, it would be a legacy sort of title to have until somebody else breaks it. But you will, anywhere you will go, you can say that you're the all-time Premier League goal scorer. That's fine. But anywhere you go, you're going to be asked, what did you win?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What did you win? You've played in England for upwards of, 8-9 years at a reasonably high level, and you've won nothing. You've come close. Like you say, you've been in Champions League finals, Euros finals, even at an international level. So with Kane, he wants to win trophies. And I think, this is from my personal opinion, I think that Daniel Levy, from what Bayern have offered as the package for Harry Kane right now, if he doesn't take it, I could very much see there being a disconnection between Harry Kane and Daniel Levy. They've always had a strong relationship as CEO and sort of club captain or main sort of superstar player. They've always had that connection. It was tested with the sort of Manchester City transfer and they then smoothed it over. He signed a new deal. Now, because he has that hesitation that he does want to win trophies, and that's become very clear, and he doesn't feel like that ambition is going to be met at Tottenham, that would insinuate he wants to go somewhere else and achieve those things. And Bayern Munich is a perfect club to do so. And the conversations that he's had with Bayern Munich, as far as I'm aware, have been very positive. He likes the city of Munich, even if it meant that his family were to stay in England, his wife and the kids to still be educated within the English education system, and he just go abroad and plays. And then whenever England have an international game, he can always come back to England, train with the England squad, see family, etc. and so forth. So it could still work with a move abroad. So that's the reason that I would say with that. Whether Daniel Levy takes the offer or not, and I'll speak on behalf of a lot of journalists, nobody knows, really. Nobody knows. The only person that knows what he's going to do is Daniel Levy. And we speak a lot about how the Glazer family sort of think when we've done sale updates. Daniel Levy is very hard to read. a communicator, but also as a personality. 1 minute you can think that you've got an agreement because of something that he said. He had a gentleman's agreement with Harry Kane that he could leave. He completely flipped a U-turn and said, no, I'd never signed to say that you can do that, so you're going to stay. That's the sort of person that he is. You could have a deal where he might say verbally to Bayern Munich, yeah, that's fine, I'll accept the offer, no problem. You put the contract in front of him and he might say, oh, I want 10 more million. That's the sort of person that Daniel Levy is. So there is a situation where there could be a potential problem with Harry Kane, I guess. But even in saying that, I think with United, and it's a big if really, because I believe that it will get smoothed over, and I think Daniel Levy will accept it based upon my own opinion. And I think if he is to go to Bayern, I think he'd do well. I think it'd be a decent success for Bayern in the 3-4 years of high quality football that they would get out of him. But also, I think as well, in saying that if he wasn't to go, I think it's very unlikely that he would sign a new deal. And I think January he has two options.
Yeah, so go on.
He has really definitively in the Premier League 2 solid options. 2 clubs that will pay him £500,000 a week straight away, not a problem. And they would take Harry Kane straight from Spurs based upon he would be their superstar number 9. Because neither of them really have that player. They have projection. They have prospect strikers, really. And those 2 clubs are Manchester United and Chelsea. Manchester United just brought in Hojlund. People say that's a potential superstar striker. You could say the same thing at Chelsea with Nico Jackson. So there is, like you say, there is a situation where you have the connection with Pochettino at Chelsea, but you also have the situation where Manchester United are in a lot more progressive sphere in their rebuild to get back to the top than a Chelsea right now. But at the end of the day, we're speaking in, hypotheticals. The thing that I would say with Kane, especially, is that if it comes to January, I can only see him staying in the Premier League if it gets to that point. Of course, you will have European clubs that will come in for you. And look, there's always, I think there will be that rumour there of Real Madrid can bring him in on a free transfer. Even if they bring in Mbappe, like you could have a front three of Mbappe, Kane, and Vinicius Junior. I mean, if that doesn't win the world, then I don't know what will. Really, as a front three.
I'm surprised that Real Madrid haven't actually gone for a striker. Actually, so
they've spent a lot. They spent a lot of their main budget on Jude Bellingham. That's the reasoning why. And because of FFP, they brought in Camavinga, they brought in Tchouaméni, they brought in all these young, hungry midfielders at the time. So the FFP constraints around them really bottled it up for them at that point. So they have spent a lot of the revenue that they have. That's why they haven't brought in a main number 9. They brought in Hojlund, who used to be a Stoke and Newcastle United. So the thing with me is that I think if it comes to January, Harry Kane, it's very likely that he would stay in the Premier League. And for me, I can only see 2 realistic clubs. That's Manchester United and Chelsea. Either work with the manager that you loved, and you should have won major trophies with in Pochettino, but you're in a different atmosphere, you're in a different environment, or make the journey up north, go and play for Manchester United. Bit more of a legacy football club maybe than Chelsea, the history, the tradition of being the mainstream number 9. You'd go down with some of the greatest number 9s to ever play in the Premier League. Your Van Persie's, your Van Nistelrooy's, Rooney's, the list is endless, Cantona's, so forth. You could go on and on for days. The legacy that you could instill yourself as being that player. And Manchester United have always been that club where they will always look at England's best player. England's best international player will always be a priority player that United will always look at. And if they're available to get, they will always try and get them. So in a couple of years' time, if Jude Bellingham becomes the superstar at Real Madrid and everything, and there might be a situation where Jude might have won everything at Real Madrid and might think, I want a new challenge, I want to come to the Premier League. If he's England's next best superstar, then United, I think they'd be fools not to be looking at him already, just like they will be with Harry Kane.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough, Chief. Let's quickly move on. See if there's any questions. We talked about that. I'll shout out to Matty in the chat. Hopefully he's doing well, buddy. Let's see, just see if there's anything else in here before we move on. Kane won Audi Cup a few years ago and Tiger Cup. Yeah, I mean, what could you say? What could you say? What could you say?
I mean, Man United won the Bangkok Cup, if you want to count that. So,
Big T says, I thought the owner has told Levy to sell this time. Yeah, I mean, well, the owner seems to be, I don't know, dealing with, I don't know what's happening. It sounds a bit wild to me with the whole insider trading and stuff. Like, and then they lose their kind of sporting director, and Spurs are a mess right now. I don't actually understand why more Spurs fans aren't like, this is stupid. We need to get for change. I don't know how you can be optimistic as a Spurs fan going into the season. Personally, are United put off by Kane's wage demand? I mean, I'll ask them, but I don't think so. But I think the issue, I think it simply comes down to a showcat is that it makes no logical sense to spend 100 million plus on a player who's got 1 year left on his contract, who is not going to sign a new deal. It'd be a different story if they were 50-50, so, but, I think that's the big thing, really. Like, at the end of the day, you're going to get him. So, what's the point, if that makes any sense? What's the point in paying 100 million? And that's what almost all clubs are thinking. The only person who's going to lose out in the future is Daniel Levy when he goes for free, when he starts speaking to clubs in January. So that's it.
That's the biggest thing again that you just said with the January sort of rumor. If it was to go to January, Daniel Levy's worst nightmare, and I can say this for a fact, is he goes to a club in London. That is his worst nightmare. So if he were, and that's the situation where if he was to ever sell to a Premier League club, Liverpool, Manchester United, Manchester City were the three clubs that he would have sold to, reasonably. Even though it's still a Premier League rival, he'd rather him not play for a local London club than not play in the Premier League at all. That's the best solution for him.
Well, he can't do anything about that. That's the thing.
No, that's the thing. He can't, and
you can't,
he will have had the option to pick where he wants to go. In a case, and Kane obviously has made it clear that he wants to win trophies. So Bayern Munich's a place that you can win trophies at. Yeah. So there is that situation where Daniel Levy is basically in control of Harry Kane's career right now, and where he decides to go. But if it goes to January, Spurs, Daniel Levy, Joe Lewis, a lot of them, they have no control of what Harry Kane does. Unless maybe there's a club that might make them a cheeky offer in January and say, I don't know, here's £50 million, let's have him now, and we'll give Harry Kane a go for half of a season. But you never know. It could happen in terms of the realistic sort of side of it for Kane. But you are dealing with Daniel Levy and Spurs. That's the only situation.
Fair enough. Right, let's put the Kane thing to for a second. Shout out to Robin and Chat says, hi guys, great show. Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. If I'm honest, guys, I was so tempted to cancel this whole thing because I wasn't feeling that great, broken hands, but I thought, you know what, let's go live. It might make me feel a bit better. So the fact that we've got like a small but growing community here where people get involved actually makes me feel like a lot better and that this is actually worth it, So I thank you guys. I thank Tom as well. I appreciate it, guys. I really, really do. Rob says, do you guys think we could challenge Man City this season? Let's hit the like button. Exactly. Hit the like button, guys. So the 30+ people watching. I am going to be doing, obviously, the preview, hopefully this weekend. I think it might be Sunday evening. Maybe Monday. We'll see. I might make it Monday, actually. Just because, obviously, just to begin the month, preview would be good. But just as a brief overview for what I think, and obviously go on to Tom. And obviously let us know in the chat as well. I think we're still quite far from challenging City, personally for me. I think had City lost a few more of their players, like Bernardo Silva and maybe Carl Walker, then I might think they're going for a rebuild. It'd be interesting to see what happens. But City, the reality is City have two teams, and their second team, I think, still beats Manchester United. It's just our home record is quite good. So do I think we'll challenge? I think it'll be very, very difficult for us to challenge. I think there's if obviously the new signings play their best, it's a possibility. But as I've said, and as I'll say in the preview, I'm not 100% sure how much Onana, Hojlund, Mason Mount, probably Amrabat might improve this team. Onana potentially because of obviously his ability on the ball, so I can see that. For everybody else, Hojlund is still a risk. We'll see, he may ball, he may not. Mason Mount, from what I've seen so far and what I've seen in Chelsea, he's average. He doesn't really massively improve the midfield. And Amrabat, likewise, I think those are two average midfield players, personally, So, but potentially in Ten Hag's system, they might work. But I'm very cautious. Right now, the only thing I would say is that we should at very least get top four. That's what I think, and get a decent cup run. I didn't say that last season because I literally thought because of how bad the season was, United would finish fifth or maybe even sixth. So the signs that we've made, I think that top four is reasonable, but competing with City might be a bit of a stretch this season. Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a struggle for a lot of clubs, really, from the level that City have set, and the bar that they have set as a club is phenomenal, really. Centurion season to multiple Premier Leagues, 3 Premier League titles in a row, 4 in a row's never been done. So that's going to be the ambition for Pep Guardiola, and they're going to defend that Champions of Europe title, the whole way through the Champions League. So that's the one thing that Pep Guardiola instills within any of his teams. They always go for it year after year after year after year. The only thing that I would say slightly on City's side is I don't think they'll have the same success that they had last season based upon, I think they've lost a lot of quality experience and a lot of players really that when it gets tough towards Christmas, towards February, you're playing 3-4 games within 10 days. Those sort of players that can drag you from deep, really, they've lost a couple of them. Gundogan, for example, for me, I think is a very, very superstar player. And really, I think he's one of the unsung heroes within that Manchester City team, especially from last season. And he always steps up on the big occasions. You saw that FA Cup final, you saw that Champions League final. You saw that, throughout the Premier League campaign. Steps up in big moments for you. That's the one thing that I know that I say with City. They have lost a couple of those edge players. Mahrez, for example, I've just said about Gundogan. Exactly. I don't really think they've replaced them well. Kovacic is not a good replacement for Gundogan, in my opinion. I think that a brilliant, sort of profiling of some players, they need a like-for-like player. And that's why when they've got, say, Mahrez, who's just left the club, I'm shocked that they aren't targeting a wide player right now, really. And there is this sort of rumour around Michael Olise at Crystal Palace. I think it's more likely he'll go to Chelsea. And there is, contrary to some reports, that a bid's gone in, as far as I'm aware, a bid's not gone in from Chelsea for Olise. At least not as of yet. I heard that they were preparing a £25 million bid for him, but whether it goes through or not, we'll see. I'm just a little bit surprised that they haven't replaced a lot of the players that they have, and I think the drop-off in quality that might give them, I don't think they'll have as a productive, dominant season as they did last season. And I think, considering that teams around them have, I think, strengthened and improved, Arsenal massively, you bring in Declan Rice, you bring in Jurrien Timber as well. Like, you bring in these solid players to improve that team, and then potentially bring in a new goalkeeper in someone like a David Raya, for example. Really, I think that's a very strong, strengthened team for Arsenal that when it gets hard towards the end of the season, I think they have them characters and leadership qualities now where they have those players that can get them over the line against Southampton, Brighton, when, the pressure's on and the going gets tough. So I think it's a combination of I think City have definitely got weaker, especially midfield and attacking wise. but they are always going to be a threat, even without the, like I say, even by losing a couple of players, they can still go anywhere in the world and blow you away 4-5-0 comfortably. That's the sort of play style that they have, unfortunately. And
Exactly.
until Pep Guardiola leaves Manchester City, they will still win trophies. That's the one thing that you can say. Even
Exactly.
some of the great, like I call it anyway, with Jurgen Klopp, I thought that Liverpool team that he built when they went 3 seasons toe to toe with Manchester City, that Liverpool team was a great Liverpool team. Even if you have to say it from a rival's perspective, it was a great team
Oh yeah.
that went toe to toe with
Was,
them, and they
if
only
it,
ended up winning. I think they
one
ended up winning one title out of what was it, 4 against
or yeah,
City,
that's the Champions League.
and
And
on 2 of those occasions they took them to the final day, and they
yeah,
lost
exactly.
out.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah,
like
if it wasn't for Pep, Liverpool would have already surpassed our trophy record and have won
yeah,
like
they would have got a couple more. Yeah, so
yeah,
in
exactly.
saying that, like I say, the dominance is there to be shown.
Mm,
But I don't think Manchester United will show it. I think they'll get to say February there. They'll be like
mm,
5 points, 6
mm,
points, something like that. But then I
mm,
think towards like when Arsenal felt it, towards the end, I think we'll just fall off, if I'm
mm,
being honest. The
mm.
best case scenario for United this season for me is I'm not calling a title challenge, but I'm saying a comfortable top 4.
Yeah.
A top 4 where it's just you, how can I say, you're like 9-10 points clear of competition with say 2 games to go. That's
Yeah.
the sort of that's the sort of thrive that I think a lot of supporters, especially with Manchester United, should deserve, and pick
Mm,
up maybe the FA Cup or something like that at the end of the season.
mm. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Um, let me just so on that topic. So going to Chelsea would affect the Chelsea like Spurs, but then again, it's not much flexibility besides that is true exactly. Like for what I was saying, if he goes to Chelsea, I don't think he will go to Chelsea, Kane. But if he did, it's like, oh, you destroyed your legacy, but what legacy though? Like, let's keep it a stack. But I just anything Green. We're going to talk about Green in a second, so I'm going to we'll come back to that as the next topic. So I'll come back to that. Anything matters? Anything about Dean Henderson? Yeah, I'll come back to that as well. Just want to quickly just round off any of the stuff. Bath time. Oh my god, it's Tom. Shout out to Bath time, man. Is this your transfer stuff, or has Tom got any insight on second phase players who might be going for? Anana vastly improves because of the +1 principle. Mason Mount as an exceptional first line pressure. I don't disagree with those things, but do I think that in and of itself will be enough to challenge City? I'm not sure. After the treble, I question if the City players will have the hunger again. I think City drops off the scene, especially the players they have let go. City dropped off. Well, that's what I'm saying. So yeah, I don't disagree with that. I'm not saying City are going to be coming here balling and destroying next season. But the question is, do the other teams have the capacity to challenge? Because City's second team can easily compete with the other teams. Do the other teams have the depth of squad to be able to last the whole season? Given that Arsenal, Newcastle, and United, all of whom weren't actually in the Champions League last season, are now going to be in the Champions League next season, as well as other cup competitions. So depth of squad is going to be important. Do they have the depth? Can they manage? It's all well and good. If I'm honest, I don't even think about who wins the title until basically the beginning of February. Like as far as before the beginning of February, it doesn't matter. After February, from February to that's when it's important. So if United are, of course, a couple of points off top in the beginning of February, let's see. But if that isn't the case, that's it. Well, it says Ericsson did well for us last year till the injury. Yeah, Mountains and Greenhomes. Like I said, I don't disagree with these things. It's just that in the context of sorry. In the context of challenging City, I still just don't think it's going to be enough. That's my opinion anyway. I'd love to hear more about profiling from Tom. Get as detailed as possible, please. Yes, he's said about our scouting department, like more about the leg size, bloody gates, like like what is with this the Kovacic and Gundogan. I mean, I don't know whether Tom has all that information. I'm curious if he does. And then here, let Tom answer. What? Oh, okay. So, Tom, do you want to answer this from bath time? Ooh, Tom, are you there? Where's he gone? You there, Tom? Tom. Okay, maybe he's coming back. So then,
Right,
unfortunately,
can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
All
Yeah.
right, yeah. I
Halftime
think
once
it cut.
it cut out a bit. Okay.
Yeah.
Halftime answer this question. It's okay.
What second phase players are we looking at? Really, really, truthfully, that there isn't a lot that United are looking at doing other than another midfielder for the window. Really,
Mm,
that's the only thing that United are really looking at.
mm,
And as you said, you've already said the name in with Amrabat. As
mm,
soon as Van der Beek, McTominay, Fred, one of those three really go,
mm,
looking more likely to be Van der Beek or Fred,
mm,
really based upon the clubs that are interested in them. Fred, I
mm.
think, is destined to leave, really,
Yeah.
because he's got far too many clubs for one of them not to take him. That's
Mm,
the problem there.
mm,
So as soon as one of those players go, Man United will go straight into talks. Florentina, the communication, they know the price,
mm,
and they'll do the negotiations and they'll try and get a deal set up in place and done relatively quickly. And because they know Amrabat wants to come to them over going to a rival club, Liverpool were interested in him before they went for Lavia, and there's a
mm.
situation with other players as well. So, you know, chasing a midfielder is the probably priority. Following on, if they do sell one of the midfielders. And in terms of second phase players, that there isn't any more that we're looking at, especially not in this window anyway.
Fair enough. Hope that answers your question, bath time. Right. Okay. Let's quickly move on. I'll also see some of the questions, which is Miles Quick says, I'm positive most one because to be honest, I've always said this, and Fergus said it as well. The most important part is the last third of the season. You know, so because we actually had good starts of the season under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and even Mourinho, but come January, when injury crisis hits, and I've noticed a trend over the last couple of years, especially when United are doing well or in top four. Not that even this season we weren't that. I think there was a point in January where we weren't that far off first. It was like maybe 6 points or something, but we lost to Arsenal, and then it kind of and Crystal Palace draw. There were suspensions, there were a few injuries, and that kind of derailed the season. So, like I said, I don't make any predictions about who wins the title until after January, because after January you have an idea as to what the squad that you have is. We'll have an idea as to where United are in cup competitions, and that will probably give more of an idea personally. So let's quickly move on because obviously I want to just quickly touch up on this. So obviously, so Mason Greenwood. Now I haven't actually spoke about this situation on my channel at all, and I'm not really going to go into the whole should he stay or shouldn't he stay debate. I just don't think that's like that's not for me to say really. I can understand both sides, and I literally have no opinion on the matter ultimately. But the reason why I sort of bring it up is just the fact that the club obviously have made a statement, or Fabrizio Romano journalist made a statement that says that Mason Greenwood, there's going to be a statement about Mason Greenwood near enough to before the beginning of the game of season. So I would suspect it will be either this weekend or next weekend. We're going to get something about the situation. And like I said, what I would say for those who are thinking that he's probably going to leave, my only thing about that, like I said, I'm not giving my opinion here either way or either way, and I don't want people to sort of fight each other in the comments about it. That's not what this community is about. But my only thing is that if Mason was definitively going out on loan or being sold, and I say I could be wrong, but if he is, why are you doing this kind of pseudo announcement for the beginning of the season? It almost sounds like to me that you're waiting for the season to start for them to almost make some sort of announcement with him. And so, like, I just don't get it. It's like if you were going to sell the player and you want to just sort of quiet, make it go away, you'd basically have just done that by now, or you've been in the process of doing it. Just you don't need to make a big announcement that we're terminating his contract and letting him go. You don't need to make an announcement for that. We didn't do that. I mean, you want to, for example, CR7 Ronaldo, one of obviously the GOATs, one of our best players. United weren't like, right, we need to make an announcement. Because it was a difficult situation. Just like post a statement, he's gone, mutual termination. That's it. Boom. End of story. So if a player is, in my opinion, is like they want to get rid of ASAP, I don't think they do these announcements. And then obviously the second is like loan. Well, again, if you're going to loan a player, are you really going to make an announcement about it or want to be something about? I don't know. I don't know. Like, so this is all speculation on my part. But if I'm honest, as soon as I heard from Fabrizio numbers that United were going to make some sort of announcement about it, it automatically thought in my mind that like he's staying. Now, in what capacity or how? Because he's not had preseason, so I highly doubt if he does stay that he's going to be playing first team football anytime soon. But I suspect, so if it is agreed that he is going to stay, it'll probably be a situation of like he'll join training sessions, under 21s, all that sort of stuff like that, and build up, and then maybe potentially might make an appearance halfway through the season, next season. I don't know. But yeah, like I said, this is not a should he stay or should he not stay discussion. It's more of a sort of like what people think about his moves, like what is the likelihood of him staying or going. And from the announcement news that we heard, like I just think the likelihood now is more that he's staying as opposed to leaving. But I don't know what you think about it, Tom.
Yeah, when you think about it, clubs they have these situations that happen really with players, and I think it's difficult based upon from what I know regarding the Greenwood situation is that the football department of the club, they value him and his qualities. They know the potential player that they had before, and really, if there was a situation where what was uncovered and what came out into the public eye, the video, the audio recording and the allegations and the charges, if it wasn't put out there and it wasn't that, let's just say that didn't happen hypothetically, you probably wouldn't be having this situation now where United are chasing a number 9. Mason Greenwood would have been that number 9. That's the situation, short and simple. So at the end of the day, the potential for the player is there, but I don't see a scenario where the commercial side of the football club can ever agree with this at all without consulting its partners, TeamViewer, Adidas, because this has massive blowback, bigger than Manchester United. So, like you say, the way that it's looking very like is that he's going to probably end up staying in some capacity. You might have a situation like Ten Hag did with Jadon Sancho, where send him away for a 4-week training camp to the Netherlands or to Dubai with a couple of United's fitness coaches or technical analysts to work on his development, his game, and get him back up to some form of physical peak and match fitness. So you could have a situation there, but I think it's very difficult to predict the outcome of it without really knowing, who's really making the final decision on it. And the best scenario that I guess you could say from this perspective is that the football department, as far as I'm aware, they value his talents as a footballer, irrespective of what's happened, in his personal life and his private life. Mason Greenwood, the footballer, is a player that should be playing at Manchester United. That's the scenario that the sporting department have come up with. The commercial side of the football club, when the allegations came out, they was completely against any form of a return. They suspended him with immediate effect. They cut a 40% wage cut on his wages that they were initially paying him. It's some sort of agreement or breach of clause that they had where they can cut a player's wages or something like that for like absence leave from the club or something. Major football clubs do it now when players, they don't return to training or so forth. I don't want to stay on holiday extra weeks with their players, so they dock the wages or whatever. So they had these clauses in place, and then from there, then they've obviously got to make the decision, and they made it very public that they'd suspended him. They made it very public that he'd been basically exiled from Carrington, the squad, and it was really a case of fend for yourself, Mason. And now it's almost has been brought in from the cold, and look, there's no I don't think there's any scenario where he won't go to an away ground and be absolutely pelted by supporters. That's why I think for him, he should make the decision where I need to get out of England. I need to go to Italy. I need to go to Turkey. I need to go to a different environment and get my love back for football and put really the past behind me. And then when I've got that experience and I've got the passion back for what I've loved, then I can come back to Manchester United potentially if they would take me back or so forth. So it's a difficult situation, but I think, you know, we're not going to obviously give opinions and things like that because we're not going to sling mud at each other based upon what we think's best for this situation. But really and ultimately, there's two sides that you look at it. There's Mason Greenwood, the football player, which I think nobody can argue the talent and the potential was there to be a superstar in any club. And I think a lot of clubs were looking at Mason Greenwood as a young player and thinking there is a superstar there. And it followed on really from the Marcus Rashford sort of model, player from the academy, superstar, attacking forward, young, enthusiastic. The development was there, the progression was there, 2-footed, wide, inverted forward, maybe. Like, it was there, ready to be made, really. And again, like you say, we're at the situation where they will make a decision and they'll make it very public. And the longer that this has been dragged out, really, it's pointing more towards that he will stay, if I'm being honest. So whether United fans have got the stomach for it, I don't know. That's everybody's own opinion. But really and ultimately, there is a clash within the football club based upon the football inside of Mason Greenwood, but also the brand and the impact that will have on the club and its sponsors. So there is some sort of complications there. But again, the Adidas deal has just been renewed recently. So if that conversation hasn't been maybe brought up regarding that, then there could be a situation where they've had some sort of an agreement or a talk around certain decision makings that they'll have to make. But the longer this drags out, the worse it looks, really, I think.
Indeed. I'm just quickly scanning the comments of Green. Like I said, I'm a bit slow with comments because I have broken my right hand, so I'm using my left hand to scroll through things. So if I'm just a bit slow with getting things, bringing up the comments, it's because of that. So so just bear with me, okay? Let's have a look. Okay, Sebastian's Manchester is a community football club that should reassure and inspire the community. Do you think Greenwood fits into that? What I'll say this is about times because like I said, I'm not giving my opinion on matter. My thoughts are essentially like the reality. Unfortunately or fortunately, but I'll probably say unfortunately, is that Manchester United are owned by the Glazers. So the question is not so much like what is best for the community, is that because, you know, if we were asking that, then we can ask the question, well, why are the Glazers still at Manchester United Football Club? So if Greenwood does stay, it won't be because of many Twitter users or people that say that they want him to stay or not, etc. That's not going to be the reason. The reason he'll stay, fundamentally, at the end of the day, is because the Glazer ownership, who are still in charge, have said, we're okay with him staying. That's it. That's the reality. Like you know, like I said, with the Ronaldo situation, you know, it was, you know, of course, he went on to Piers Morgan, etc., but they terminated it. It was quite official statement on the website, out of the way, that's it. There's no reason why Manchester United as a club can't do that with Mason Greenwood if they definitively wanted him to leave. I could be wrong, but just I look at the Ronaldo situation and go, the way that we handled that versus, and even the way that we've handled even players that like you know, back in the day, like Romero and other players that went to the end contracts, we just basically just, even De Gea, with how De Gea was treated. So when you look at how certain players have been treated, etc., by the club, it just seems a bit players that didn't even deserve it. It just seems a bit weird that we're like, oh, we're going to have an announcement on it. It just doesn't make sense to me. And the only thing I can think of fundamentally is that the Glazer ownership, board, whatever, want him to stay. And if that's the case, just like the Glazers could decide to stay and not sell and all this stuff like that, unfortunately, there's nothing that the fans can do about it. That's basically my sentiment on the matter. And these days now, especially United, I don't get mad about stuff that I can't change. You know, even the whole Sheikh Jassim versus Jim. At the end of the day, it's going to be the Glazers that are going to make the decision. And if we get mad about who's going to be the owner or not, we don't have any control about it. That's unfortunately modern football. Unlike in, say, the Bundesliga, where at least you have 50% fan ownership. So I think, for example, ironically enough, if we had that type of Bundesliga model, there's no way in hell Greenwood would have come back. No way in hell, because obviously it's 50% fan ownership, and you have the viewpoint of the fans on side. Premier League, nope. So there you go. Unfortunately, I have some copy Tom and going hard. Let's have a quick just any more on Greenwood. I don't want to really dwell on it, because I want to probably go on to talk briefly about Amrabat and best starting 11, but I just thought it'd just be worth just to touch on a little bit. I agree with what it's playing out. Looks like we're keeping Green, and I'm good with that. Okay, that's your opinion, guys. Don't get into fight about it over the chat. Sure, says I think that United want to keep Green announced after the Adidas deal confirmation. I mean, I don't think the Adidas deal has anything to do with it, to be honest. Don't ask Mr. D. 100%. I've said my piece, Bath Time. I've said my piece. Eric says maybe the strong to find a club doesn't care, but I mean, that's possible. That's possible. But I mean, from what Tom, I think, alluded to, when we were on Hojlund, I think that Greenwood was potentially part of the deal, but that might have been rumors. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, that is definitely a possibility. Like maybe clubs like, listen, we're not going to deal with this. But I can't. But the only thing I'll say is I can't believe that there isn't a single club on the planet like that wouldn't take him. Like Saudi Pro League, for example, although maybe that might affect them. I don't know, but there's got to be a club on the planet that could take him. You know, so I don't know. League, it's almost impossible to prosecute now. His partners, yeah. I mean, yeah, just which leads us to massive damages if we treat him. Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, I don't really know about the legal issues around it, because you know, I guess I don't want to speculate in it, but I guess there's one of those things where I still think that as a club, you should still be able to make that decision based on contracts. But I said I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. I'm a doctor. I can speak about medical and injuries, but law is just not my specialism. Because is it possible that if United get rid of him, that he can sue them? I don't know. And you know how the Glazers are when it comes to not wanting to be sued. So I really don't know. And Adidas did say they have no say in the Greenwood decision. Yeah. It's like I said, the Greenwood, the people that have the say are the Glazers. So I don't want a situation where whatever happens to Greenwood, people are blaming other fans. It's not pro or anti Greenwood fans that are making the decision. It's ultimately the Glazers that make it. So if anyone has any issue with whether Greenwood stays or goes, you need to talk with the Glazers. I mean, you speak with the Glazers about it. Like, I've seen people say, "Oh, I'm not going to watch if he goes. I'm not going to watch if he stays." It's like, but you've been silent about the Glazers. So, it's like, it's not random Twitter users guy that Greenwood may or stay or may leave. It's the Glazers' decision. So if you have an issue with it, petition the Glazers out, whatever it is that you do, instead of getting excited about Manchester United's latest signing. That's my take on it. Thomas, you can't remember Tom because Tom's actually just Tom will be right back. That's what I'm trying to say. I agree, but I agree with the answer of Greenwood case. With the way the case being counted, points was direction of keeping him United. This will be a good thing. Well, okay, so we've got obviously some, and I did post it in the community chat, and I think there were people when I looked at the poll. There was good, fair people, about 300 or so of you guys that voted. And in fact, let me quickly go to my community tab. Let's have a look, because I did push the poll. It was a while back, wasn't it? Yeah, 6 days ago, a week. Yeah, 331 of you guys voted. And the result was overwhelming for him to stay. 76% of you guys, 13% wanted a loan, and 11% said still. So that was the community. So the majority of you guys want him to stay. Okay, fair enough. That's your opinion. He'll struggle if he stays, says Eric Selim. He'll constantly be reminded of it. But that's what I think. I mean, and again, trying to be on the fence about this, what I would say is that you are right and wrong at the same time. And I only say that because there have been players in the Premier League that have done that have done far worse. I can think of probably Marcus Alonso, that people have forgotten. The guy killed somebody, and it was drink driving, So, and someone died, but no one mentions that. But no one, when Alonso scored a goal against Arsenal and like that, did any rival fans, anyone mention this? I know the nature of the living is different, but drink driving and killing someone is still pretty significant. But unfortunately or fortunately, with the football fans, when a player balls, when a player does well, when a player leads their team, it's a lot easier for people or for fans to be like, well, okay, yeah, but look at what he's doing. I think, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but that he'll be more reminded of it if the dude basically flops. If he does come back and he puts stink after stink after stinker, because United fans will get on his back, other fans will get on his back, etc. That this guy is scoring like hat tricks every game, people will be quick to turn a blind eye. I keep us that people will be very quick to turn a blind eye, unfortunately. A well-known United social media figure since at what's best describes it. Right, okay. Let him go on loan for a bit. Says, yeah, some mixed opinions here. So Matty says, I want him gone. I mean, so this is what I'm saying, guys. Like, people say what they'll sing, but like, you go to Chelsea, people are saying racist chants, monkey chants. People singing about Hillsborough. People sing about Munich. Yeah, unfortunately, that's all I can say, really. Football fans can be really messed up. As simple as that, really. Do you think the away fans will crucify him? Well, they might. But this is what I'm saying. It's like, what? And this is me trying to speak objectively. Is that the reality is that in such a media-centric country, society, the latest news will always take over the current news. The latest news will always take over the current news. So let's say, for example, a situation does happen. If, I don't know, I'm just trying to think. And like, yeah, if for example, Mbappe signs to Madrid and balls or goes out on loan to Chelsea, do you really think that Greenwood was going to be in the papers and the press? No, of course not. Especially if he comes on loan to the Premier. I'm just giving as an example, like the Mbappe, because people know where the money is, and whether unfortunately like it or not, the people make the media. The only reason why let's put it this way: if Mason Green was playing for Luton, while it would be in the news, it wouldn't be at the forefront because it's Manchester United global brand. Of course, it's propagating at the forefront, but of course, you can always get another media story like Mbappe, for example, that can surpass that. So essentially, what I'm saying is that yes, they will at the beginning, but not until you get basically you get more news, because you also got to remember as well, next season is the Euros. So from January onwards, are people really going to be talking about Green and thing? Probably not. They'll be talking about the Euros, who's going to be winning, who's close to winning, who's going to be in the England squad, all those things. That's what the press is going to be dominated by, and people will forget. That's it. Munich is what's strategy. This is domestic violence, so we targeted personally must be so the ops won't be in the wrong here. Oh no, I'm not. This is not about. I'm not asking about the Glaze thing. I'm asking what you think. I've said my piece. I don't comment on things that I'd have no control over. So from this whole thing, I've taken a very balanced approach to it. Like, because ultimately, whether he stay, I can see why people say that he should stay. I can see why people say that he should go. But at the end of the day, it's not for me. It's not my decision. And I've seen so many United fans fighting each other about this, but they don't have control of the situation. So it's like, I don't really, for me personally, believe it's essential. I'm saying it's wasted energy to debate, to talk about it. I only even brought it up because of the impending announcement and the fact that I feel that likelihood is he's going to stay because of it. So, and to be honest, like, we're all talking about the season. Everyone is getting, say, distracted, I guess, by the signings. So what happens if the Glazers stay, Greenwood stays, etc.? What is going to be the mood going into the upcoming season? I don't know. Are people going to rally against the Glazers to push them out, or are people going to just watch football? I suspect it will be more of the latter. Is my personal thing. But yeah, don't disagree. But yeah, like I said, the reality is that unlike the German clubs that have fan ownership, the Premier League clubs do not. So that's really what I can say. Really, it's just that's it. Like I don't know what else. I don't know what else to say. Really, is it? It has nothing to do with the Glazers. It does though. It does though. Like I don't get how it doesn't have anything to do with the Glazers. They're the Glazers or the board ownership. They are the people that he's their employer. I don't understand. It has everything to do with the Glazers and ownership. They could decide to terminate his contract or not. Just like I lose the Ronaldo situation. Obviously Ronaldo wants to leave, but they terminated it. Probably you couldn't use it. But in theory, they could have been like, no, he's staying. The Glazers had to agree, or the ownership had to agree to terminate his contract by, mutual consent thing or whatever. But they could have been like, nah, irrespective of what Ronaldo did. So, yeah, I that's something I'll disagree with him. It has nothing to do with the Glazers ownership. It does. It does. The Glazers government thing, the Greens influence isn't on them. So then who is it on though? I don't understand who. If it's not on the Glazers, then who's his employment status on? Who's his employer? I don't understand that about that. I mean, Tom, I don't know. Am I missing something, or am I wrong?
No, I'd probably agree with you in that they employ him, they pay him.
Yeah.
He plays for one of their youth clubs. I mean, what's the difference if this was a Tampa Bay Buccaneers young player for their NFL team? What's the difference? It's just that it's a different sport. They still pay him.
Yeah,
they still employ him.
I used to jab a lot the Alonso situation, because people want to really forget it.
Yeah, he killed somebody, didn't he?
Alonso, this is not rumors. This has happened. He was drink driving and he killed somebody. I don't, but Chelsea, all the clubs that he went from, Chelsea, I think, and even Barcelona, they know that on his record. He's got a criminal record. They decide to employ him.
Yep.
They could look and go, bro, you have a drink driving charge and you led an essential manslaughter. You're not playing for us. That's up to the clubs, unfortunately. So that's all I'll say on the matter, really. Let's have a look. Let's see. But anyway, we'll probably move on to the grand matter. Hashtag Maguire out. Don Wagner, man, long time no see. Where have you been? Long time. Don Wagner is one of the earliest subscribers to this channel. I know he's a medic as well, so let me know how your training goes, because I'm almost at consultant level now in the UK, consultant radiologist. So let me know how things are going, man. Long time no see, buddy. So, and your first comment is Mount and Bruno midfield is underwhelming. So this guy, man, the sarcasm, but it's your opinion as well. So there you go. Bathtub says Mount and Bruno poor in the second phase, Casemiro too. We're gonna talk about Amrabat. I'm just gonna just go through your comments. I think there was something before. Maguire's career at United is calm for how the media helped him escape prison time in Greece in plain sight. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, actually, I still don't know what the outcome of that was. It is, again, this is the thing about media, because it was in the press and it disappeared. And it's I don't know what happened. Wasn't he supposed to go to court or something? What happened about that? But yeah,
he was found guilty, he paid a fine, and then they basically moved it on. But he never had a trial. That was the.
Okay.
I think that was the thing, and they like post. I think how it works with Greek law is that they post bail. He pays the bail, but
Mm.
post, and then they have like a trial period later on or something. But
Mm.
you never know. Like money talks, doesn't it? Unfortunately.
What's if a player should not play because fans don't like him, have the players in the Premiership? That's true. Wait, please don't compare a tragedy affected the common man to what Green did at all. Is this in reference? Is this horrible events occur locally in a local football club? Are you talking about? Uh, are you talking about what Alfonso did? Sorry, Alonso did. I hope you're not talking about what Alonso did back time, because like as someone who's a medic, I've seen and counseled a lot of people that have died because of people being irresponsible or drinking and driving. So I really hope that you're not talking about that. Maybe you're mentioning something else, but if you're talking about Alonso, like I'll put that to bed right now. Like we're not talking about that. Okay. If it's something else, then I agree with you. But if it's mentioning comparing Alonso to this, then yeah, let's not go there. Let's have a look. Although maybe you're responding to someone else. Sorry, so that's my fault. Yes, I see. I wasn't comparing to my. Okay, yeah, sorry. Ignore me. Sorry, not you, sir. I did not. Oh wait. Oh, I don't know. Anyway. If you so football is all about opinions, but there is no but there is no football is all about opinions, but there's no room for racism. I don't know. Yeah, I guess I don't know. Like, is there opinion about it? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I've made my opinion. I've made my opinion known about it. So there you go. Um. If audience, if Virgin coming to your ER with an injury, which means ever treat him. Yeah, because we can't. Because that's as a doctor that you can't neglect as someone who works in the NHS. You can't decline or deny people based on what they've done. That's part of the Hippocratic Oath. No matter how bad or good you perceive them to be, you always have to. That's the nature of the oath that you take before you practice medicine. You actually swear an oath after you graduate medical school to like basically treat people irrespective of their obviously if they're threatening you, etc., that's different. But you can't discriminate based on anybody or anything. You know, that's how I practice, you know. Anyway, let's put the green thing to a side. So yeah. Let's put that. Let's put. Oh no! That wasn't my. Oh, that's what you mean. Oh no! I wasn't. that wasn't my intention. It was just. I think the context was about fans chants or fans chanting, as in people are chanting about stuff. Not that the situations are comparable. Anyway, let's move on. Tom, do you have any brief updates about Amrabat? Like where we are with him?
Well, should United be able to offload Van der Beek, Fred, McTominay, like at least one of the midfielders, they plan to pursue Amrabat. One of the things that they actually was looking at was out of those three, they were looking at selling two. Kobe Mainoo was going to be one of the ones that was going to be brought in and given first team minutes, and then they was going to bring in another new midfielder as well as bringing in through a youth player to also play. That's always the one that they've looked at is their second midfield target after Mason Mount. If they were to go for another midfielder, that's who they wanted. They want a cover player for Casemiro, but they also want a versatility player that can play 8, 6. I've even seen, Amrabat at some points for Fiorentina when they've had no cover. He even played right back at one point. So there is versatility in terms of him as a player. So it gives options to United, but also, again, it's a player that Eric Ten Hag really wants. There isn't really any significant update, really, regarding him. It's more to the point of United have to do the work before they can pursue the player, but the player's waiting on standby for Manchester United. So it's really in United's court.
So, is there anything regarding that? Because I'm not saying I got a slack last time by saying Amrabat was the Moroccan Fred. I know people in the chat are gonna slap me for saying that. But what I do think is that, like, really and truly, Tom, we shouldn't be paying more than, you know, 35 million euros for this guy.
Mm,
You know, like I just think that he's, you know, if we're being quoted about like 50 million plus for Amrabat, I just think that we're being robbed.
mm,
So, you know, is there a possibility? Essentially, what I'm asking is that, like, do Manchester United have to sell like Fred, Van der Beek, and McTominay, or probably Fred and McTominay first, before they get Amrabat, or because they think that they're going to have to pay more money for him? Because 30 million isn't that much, or is it an FFP
mm.
thing? Like, trying to see what I'm trying to say. Like what's the?
Yeah.
Because if we're having to kind of try and sell McTominay, Fred, or Van Beek or whatever, so that we can pay 50 million for Amrabat, you know, then I don't know. I just think that's, I don't know, but I don't know. What do you think? What do you think?
Well, the quoted asking price that I heard from Florentina's side was that they wanted 40 million euros, which was, I think it come to around about 35 million pounds. So it was really the sort of bracket proportion of player that United were looking at getting in terms of price and valuation. It met that, but it also met what the manager wanted for a player. But United were looking at if they could try and get him for 25, maybe bring them to 30, put a couple of add-ons in there potentially, and try and get the deal gone through. And again, the player wants to go to Manchester United, so it gives United the upper hand and leverage with negotiations. So he was. I don't think he played one of their Florentina's pre-season games today. I don't think he was part of the squad either. So again, there's a club, I guess, understanding with the player that he would like to move to Manchester United. It's just a case of when United come with an official bid, that will it meet what Florentina wants straight away? Personally, I think United are going to try and negotiate it like they have done for the last couple of ones. But if it gets to the point where they hit a roadblock, they'll just pay the money. I guess that's the simple scenario. They'll just pay the money. They made the sales off of Anthony Elanga, 15 million. And then if they get 15, 20, those sort of medium prices for a Van der Beek or a McTominay, a Van der Beek or a Fred, one of those two players, it makes up the other half of the money to then pay for Amrabat, really.
Thank you, Tom. Fair enough. Baftam says again, Thomas McTominay can play 8 and 6. How much intent do you think there is to offload him, as we have one specialized 6 and 3 8s? Yeah, that's a fair comment, because like that's one of the things that I am concerned about, was that if McTominay does go, then, you know, and Fred goes, then who are the 6s? You know, you're relying on maybe Casemiro, maybe, and then that's it. And if he gets a red card, who's playing there? But I mean, what do you think about this?
Yeah, well, like people have already said, you know, it's the thing with McTominay is that he's always been a valued member of the squad, not necessarily the first team, but the squad. And the thing with him is that it's not so much about that McTominay isn't a respected member of the squad. It's that he's an attainable asset that they could get a significant payout from, because he came through the academy. Any transaction that they would get based upon selling him go straight onto the books. There's no, you have to pay off a club before where you bought him from or anything like that. It's just a straight transaction. And that's the one thing that Manchester United really are looking at from Scott McTominay, is that it as a deal, it's a good deal to do if a club's prepared to give them quite a bit of money for one of their squad players, really. But if he doesn't get the offer in, he's still going to be a valuable member of the squad, especially when it comes to rotation. You think about it, you play a couple of games like they did last season where they had to really play first team players against maybe such as, for example, Reading, and they got into a situation where, for, you know, two or three players in that game ended up getting injured. You had Ericsson, you had, who else was there? There was another midfielder anyway. There was a couple of midfielders that had situations where they got into injury, and then you only was left really with 2 or 3 players that could actually play in the midfield. And that was going on for a run of 3 games. And then you have Casemiro getting suspended. And it was really a nightmare toward the end for Manchester United. So with McTominay, he's a valued member of the squad. So it gives them the added bonus of that. It's a player that, yeah, if we sell, we want a decent package for. But if we don't, he's a valued member of the squad, and we're going to work with him. And really, it comes down to money. And if somebody's prepared to offer them 45 million pounds for him, then Manchester United are willing to let him go and potentially go and have a future elsewhere, rather than be at Manchester United, where he's been at for, all the time as a young player. And again, like I say, having, decent squad players are far and, wide to come from, really, in the modern day era. So again, as Baftime says, it's one specialised 6 and 3 number 8s. Again, it's a situation where you're going to be in a position, needle in a haystack sort of settings. And if United don't really work on the deal that well, then, well, you could have a scenario or a situation where no party is really happy. And McTominay would stay, but he's happy to be a squad member. So again, there's the problem and there's the solution, really. And the solution, I think, for United is that they could get a lot of their FFP constraints off just by selling one young player who's just a squad player.
Well, this is the thing. This is why, so it's not so much that, I'm saying McTominay is out and good, etc. So I agree, McTominay is a good squad player. But from an FFP and a spending point of view, if we are wanting to get Amrabat, McTominay was a, in quote, young academy player. And if West Ham, for example, willing to spend, say, we want 40 million for him, you just sell him. I'm sorry, like 40 million for Scott McTominay is good. So 20 million, okay, I understand, or something like that. But if they 35, okay, maybe we can listen to it. So less than 20 years.
Put some add-ons in there, and
put some add-ons in, etc. So like, you sell them for 40. Personally, So, but yeah, anything less than that, and then we'll struggle. So, and as you said, FFP constraints because of that will be improved. So, yeah, I think these are the things, unfortunately, depending on what side of the argument. I avoided or fumble Amrabat. Again, I think it's tied towards offloading players. If Fred and Van der Beek definitively want to leave, I'm sure. Fred report. Actually, give us a bit of Tom. Give us a little bit of an update regarding outgoings, because I was reading on Twitter, that there was an issue with potentially the Fred transfer. Obviously, and obviously, sorry, even someone mentioned, actually, I even forgot the comments. Matty, actually, I was going to come back to it, said anything about Dean Henderson, Nottingham looking at Turner now. So just regarding outgoings of players, like what is actually the latest update regarding some of these guys? Because it looks like every player we thought was going to leave may potentially stay, and that's obviously what might affect the Amrabat solution.
Yeah. Well, the thing with Fred again is that he has that many options and that many clubs that I think it's very unlikely that he will stay rather than, go. There's, as far as I'm aware, there's upwards of 6 clubs that are interested in him, and when you have that many clubs, I think there's at least 2 or 3 that will make you decent offers, and United can create a bit of a bidding war for a player. So, as far as I'm aware, with the move potentially to Galatasaray, it looks very likely that it will collapse based upon that they don't want to pay over £10 million for the player. So there's a problem there. Fred preferred going to Galatasaray based upon that he would have been in the Champions League. So that was a consideration for him. Saudi clubs cannot come in easily and offer him decent chunks of a wage proportion. So, again, there's options there if he wants to have maybe a big payday. But then there's also a situation if he wants to stay in the Premier League in a competitive sense. Fulham, again, Wolves have just lost Ruben Neves, João Moutinho. Like, they need midfielders. They might come into the market for one. And so there's a situation where a couple of clubs are looking at players. In terms of Dean Henderson, as I said before, it was based upon that United initially wanted a permanent deal. They then went and said, well, we'd be happy to settle for a loan so long as it's an obligation to buy at the end of the season. So then we know how much we stand to gain coming to the end of it. And when they came to that scenario, it came down to it with Nottingham Forest, where they're looking at Turner at Arsenal, but Dean Henderson's still a priority to get into the door.
Yeah,
that's the one thing. But there is a situation that's arose from within Nottingham Forest that they've brought in a lot of players. I think they brought in upwards of 18, 19 players last season to now.
They signed loads of players last season, Forest.
The problem that they've got is that they aren't paying a lot of the clubs the money that they have agreed to pay them for the players in installments.
Sorry, I'm laughing at that. So, because sorry to interrupt you, Tom, but like, Nottingham Forest signed basically 2 squads last season.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't get how a club that's just been promoted from the Championship is able to buy all of those players on decent wages without any FFP concerns or whatever. And so the fact that you're telling me that like they're basically like are holding out on some of these teams in terms of actually paying their fee is actually laughable, to be honest. It sounds like some mafia stuff or something, you know, dodgy dealings or something. Only fools and horses for those who are old like me. So like Rodney, you know, so that's like dodgy dealings, man. So it's funny. But yeah, sorry, go on, Tom, go on.
Yeah, no, again, like I say, it's based upon that they've agreed to it's basically that they've agreed to pay certain clubs what they want in terms of the overall package of the deals, but they've paid installments in a lot of the deals that they've done. So the problem that they've done, you sign upwards of 19 players and you pay in installments for all of them. Majority of the high profile ones, like the Morgan Gibbs White deal, for example, with Wolves, they pay, I can't remember what the overall package was. I think it came to around 40 million. They're paying that off in like 4 installments, 10 million at a time for over 4 years. You then have a situation with Renan Lodi, who they bought from Atletico, who they were getting from Atletico Madrid. I think he got him in a package deal for around 25 million pounds, 30 million euros, something like that. They've paying in installments again. So the situation where they've asked for a loan, you can understand it from that aspect because it means that they don't actually have to pay any Manchester United out in the long term, but they're obligated to do so at the end of the season anyway. But again, who's to say that Manchester United would receive that money? And look, without the Premier League are with a lot of clubs now, when FFP's, you know, constraining around certain clubs, there is a situation where you could see it with Manchester United where the players that they end up selling, they might not even get the full money for. I mean, right now, United still haven't been fully paid off from selling Romelu Lukaku through Inter Milan. And how many years ago was that? So
it's mad.
And we are where we are.
Made like 3 transfers since then. Obviously, he went to Inter, then went from Inter to Chelsea. Now, sort of went back on loan to Inter. Now, potentially, is going to Juve. So it's like, and yet we still don't have the full money for Lukaku, which is quite crazy, you know. So there you go. I don't know what Inter did with the 100 million that Chelsea gave them. I'm not entirely sure what they did with them, but they don't have it.
I think they paid. I think they paid off a lot of the debts, to be honest.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because Serie A is another. I mean, I probably talk about that when we talk about season preview. Because I do. I'll probably do a Serie A season preview of the Rossoneri guys. But Serie A looks like, I won't dwell on it now, but Serie A looks like it's in a bad way. It looks like it's a bad way. Right, okay. So just last thing, because I need to go to sleep. I'm so tired. But thank you guys, everyone tuning in. You made this really good show. I really, really appreciate it. So like I said, I've been a bit slow because I've broken the bone in my hand. Yeah, it's a bit tricky. It's a bit tricky. Shout out to David T. And Jack says, I mean, Forest transfer dealings are sort of understandable, but I don't understand why Chelsea are raiding the newborn nurseries in Brazil. Yeah, that is interesting. The amount of like, I don't know what's going on with Chelsea signing 25 million stand on all these dons. I don't know. And I take it from the chat. Oh, artists, can you ask Tom one last question? Okay. This is regarding McTominay, because I see McTominay love in the chat, bath time. I see McTominay love in the chat, and I respect it. I respect it. Was there any other questions in here? I don't think there was. If you want to talk, so regarding the sale talk, if you tune in United Red to the show we did 2 days ago, that will give you the latest news updates. So what I would say though is that I thought it was funny, especially to those who are like, why do sale updates? That me and Tom did that show late last night on what was it? Was it Wednesday? I think Wednesday night. Wednesday at 11, and literally the day after, I saw so many big United fan channels saying the exact same thing that Tom basically said on that show. Like literally the same thing, if not worse, because obviously Tom's a journalist that got more in depth. But I was just like, but people flock and will go, yeah, because they have so. When I tell you guys that Tom is the transfer don, the transfer goat, it means something because more often than not, we tend to break the news a lot earlier than a lot of these big dons who basically say more or less the same thing, if not worse. So I want to pick up Tom for that because you broke the news a lot. I'm not going to name the channels, but you broke the news a lot of these channels that talked about it essentially the following morning and afternoon. So there you go. Big up, Tom.
Yeah.
What was this? What's the question? How worried is Europe about Saudi's league's window? Are they moving even harder after our window finishes? Obviously, I asked to Tom, but like, what do you think about that? I have an opinion about it, but I'll let you obviously expand on that too. So let me speak.
Well, the thing, and I know it was expressed anyway by Jurgen Klopp on Liverpool's pre-season tour. When the Premier League window shuts, Saudi Arabia's window, because they regulate their own league, and it's not under UEFA's restriction or jurisdiction, should I say, that it basically gives Saudi Arabia the opportunity, really, where they could buy Premier League players weeks after the Premier League window shut. So one of your superstar players could
I didn't know that.
essentially get a big contract offer from Saudi Arabia, and then suddenly you can't then buy a replacement for one of those players. So then you're in a situation, really, where you've got a club that would be paying that player very handsomely. And yes, you would still get a transfer figure for that player, absolutely. But again, you're in the situation where you can't buy a replacement. And say in Manchester United's case, they aren't really that many quality midfielders that they have right now. If they came in and offered Casemiro stupid money, I don't know, they chucked to United and said, look, here's £80 million. You make your money back for what you paid for him last season, and we'll offer him £1 million per week.
Yeah.
Like, it could be a situation then where you can't buy a replacement.
I was looking at the apparently like there's a job adverts where the Saudi Pro Third Division is actually looking for players to sort of play there. They put it as like it's football
yeah,
job.
I've seen this. Yeah,
good. I saw it. I was just like, and then they were like 100k a year with free accommodation stuff. I was like, I think I could probably still, like for a year, I think I could probably ball. I think in the Saudi position, I think I could ball. So
I think the offering for that was they set you up accommodation for the year and
exactly, yeah,
100k payments, but
yeah,
they want to have a bit
accommodation, zero taxes. Like, I'm sorry, guys.
There isn't the zero tax. I think you get taxed after 2 years when you come back from Saudi Arabia, or I think there's like an EU clause or something like that. But
okay, fine. So, but I mean, I'm sorry, guys.
You're still going to be loaded after it.
I'd be up for it. I'm sorry. I'd be up for it. I can give you my. I would be up for playing third division if you're saying that I have to just kick a ball. I'm going to get 100k a week. So we're just sort of so. Yeah, if you don't see any updates on this channel, you know why or what's happened basically. So, but I mean, to be honest, I think the big thing is, and we might do again a live show when we bring the United Forum back. So a lot of you, I put in a poll, and a lot of you, in fact, let me look at the poll because geez, my hand. In the community tab. So a lot of people voted on the obviously just things for the upcoming season. And I think almost half of you want match reactions. That's a given. But 21% of you want watch longs in the United Forum back. The watch alongs, I think I am going to do on Twitch. So every watch along I'll do on Twitch. I'm probably not going to be doing match previews. I mean, a lot of people, only 8%. I think I'm probably relegating match previews because there's only one me. I'm only one person. So I'll probably relegate match previews to sorry, where's Tom has got to go. Tom had to head. Tom had to head. Okay, so it is literally just me. Okay, so we'll probably begin to round things up. We're at the end of the show anyway. So, but in conclusion, bath time. I think the Saudi League is here to stay. And the reality is that I think that a lot of clubs even around Europe, especially because they're close to breaching FFP, there are going to be a lot of clubs where if they know that Sarasus is going to pay money, are going to offload their players to get money to not breach FFP, and Saudi have the money. And if you look at the most successful, there's a reason why Manchester City are arguably the most successful team in Europe right now. They are basically backed by a nation, and they're the most successful team in Europe now. Even though America has the MLS, and even though China has the Chinese league, can you name me any clubs around Europe that have successful American or Chinese owners? Recent success. Liverpool at a stretch with the Champions League and Premier League, but that's about it, really. Yeah, let me round things up. James, cool. So yeah, Tom's report headed off. Big up, Tom. Heard about Man United's potential to Marcus Leonard from Santos. He's exciting Brazil with a price tag around 50 million. Could be option for a second striker. I haven't, but you know what I'll do, Jarvis? I'll bookmark this comment, and then when we do our next show, I'll bring it up with Tom and address it there. Okay, Chief? Where's the next stream on United? Probably the season preview on Monday, because tomorrow is going to be just a kind of a welcome to Manchester United Hojlund. We're going to talk about Hojlund, and I'll probably get one of the Rossoneri TV guys. I might be able to get an Inter fan. I'm not sure yet, but certainly a Serie A fan to come on the show and basically just give a bit of insight into Hojlund and how he'll play and all the rest of it. So that's essentially the plan for tomorrow's stream. Let's see how players fall to Saudi when they see that WhatsApp picks of lavish lifestyle the ex-teammates. Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, the only difference, like I said, I'll say about the Saudi league, is that they have money. And it's clear because when you appreciate the fact that Saudi have already invested in golf, they've already invested in boxing, they're putting a lot of money into those things. A lot of the Emirati countries are investing a lot, Dubai, Qatar, etc. in football. We had the Qatar World Cup, so there is money in this. And the reality is that the money is going towards the East and not the West anymore, I'd say. As much as Messi is balling in the MLS, do I really think that the MLS is going to take off and be a rival to the European League now that Messi's there? Probably not. Maybe high viewership for a little bit, and then as soon as he leaves, that's it. I don't think it'll be sustainable personally. And also, in fairness to Saudi Arabia, guys, people need to forget they were the only team in the World Cup to actually beat Argentina. And they were pretty good at that. And most of those players, if I remember, actually played domestically. So how bad are they really? So when at least at the World Cup stage, they caused probably one of the biggest upsets in recent World Cup history. I know they didn't qualify, but still. And a lot of those players actually played in the domestic leagues. Unlike, say, the USA, where a lot of the players played in foreign leagues. What is the quality of, say, the USA's, if you were just to pick players that played in the MLS to pick them for a World Cup, what would be the quality? I'm curious. I mean, can the fam live in the UAE and the players work in Saudi? Yeah, I suspect that's what they'll do. Or maybe maybe Dubai or something. Maybe that's tends to be what people live. Yeah. Let's have a look. Just review some questions and we'll round up. Yep, I've answered that. I'd love to hear your opinion too. Thanking you for that. If Kane play, where is it? Sorry. if Kane, for example, stays at Spurs and 200 million comes in, yeah, leave it. Well, it will obviously be up to the player. The player has to decide. The player can still say no, as like say Lukaku has done, for example, because he had offers from Saudi. But yeah, Daniel Levy's not rejecting 200 mil. Levy's not rejecting 200 mil. If he's not rejecting 200 mil, like no, like it's the same thing when the Saudi bid for Mbappe. Was it like 300 million? And they were like, yeah, of course, but the player didn't want to open up talks. So there you go. But maybe in 10 years, probably would. I played UAE Second Division when I was 19. I'd be well up for it. Oh, really? Fair enough, Chief. If Saudi teams get a Champions League place, it's game over, surely. I don't think they'll go that far, but what I think they'll do is they'll start to do exhibition games. Like, the key is to look at, say, something like Newcastle, right? Like what, Newcastle, they're going to go, they'll play exhibition games with the local teams, that type of thing, really promote them because they have money in the Premier League and all these places. So they're going to use that to their advantage to big up the profile of it. I also hear reports that Sky Sports are actually bidding for the Saudi Pro League rights. So, if Sky get the rights and you're like, right, okay, there's no Premier League football on BT Sports, but there's a Saudi League sort of game. People may tune in. Like I know if I sometimes watch La Liga and Serie A and Bundesliga, but if none of the big teams of games are on, and I'm like, oh, Al Nasser's got Baye and Ronaldo and Tellez and all these different players. I'm like, maybe tune in for a bit and see. So they'll definitely get more eyes. Let's put it that way. Whatever you say, whether it will be sustainable or not, we'll see. But they are making a push. They are. If you don't get me on for the forum, can you get them on day one as a next pro? Yeah, I'm gonna be sending out things out for the United Forum. Like the United Forum really is like I say it's the United Forum, but really we don't talk a lot about United and more about like it's much more of like a rival banter show because you get a lot of rival fans, City, Liverpool, etc. And people just banter and stuff like that all the time. At least that's what happened last season. So yeah. Can a club own a pick up its club and move it to another part of the world? I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah, they've done it in golf and boxing, Spanish football. Oh wait, yes, Copa del Rey. Yeah, exactly. I think it's the future. I do, so because they know the Saudis know that just relying on oil alone is not going to be a long-term investment. And so they're using the money that they're getting from the oil to invest in a diverse range of products. And sports is the biggest one. Football is the biggest one. I just think that, if it's not, at the end of the day, like I think that, especially because they're now relaxing the rules on multi-club ownership potentially, you're going to have a situation where like a lot more teams are going to be bought by a lot of these Saudi guys. So it's different means. And yeah, that's where we're going. Simple as that, really. Qatar buying United in November. Yeah, I said United were tuned into the show yesterday. No, not yesterday, Wednesday. Wednesday it was. Wednesday. We answered all the questions. So go in. The link is in the if you just go to the community tab, or obviously the main page, you'll see and have a look at that. Hardest, what is root of you? I've got no idea. Human beings. Yeah, one I'd prefer to watch Brozovic than Messi. No. I'm not saying that people don't want to watch Messi. But what I'm saying is, so yeah, Dubai's UAE. So yeah, that's what I meant, buddy. Sorry. Yeah, no, I'm not saying that. It's just it's looking at the longevity of it. So yes, I think that people much also will see Messi born the MLS. However, do I think that as soon as Messi leaves the MLS, that the MLS viewership is going to stay high or whatever, it's going to increase? No. So the Messi MLS buy seems more of a short-term, oh, here's Messi, increasing brand awareness short-term for the especially because the World Cup is going to be coming soon in 2026, isn't it, I think? So it's more a short-term thing, whereas I see the Saudi thing as like a long-term 10, 15-year project type of thing. Much like when, Abu Dhabi bought Manchester City. I didn't believe they were going to win the Champions League within, like, the first few years. It's a long-term project with continuous monetary investment and maybe cooking the books a little bit. They are where they are today. So I don't see the Saudi League being the best league for a while. But if you were to ask me in 10 years' time at this sort of investment, it could certainly surpass leagues like Serie A, where the league is, or leagues where they're clearly hemorrhaging money every season, and the only way for them to survive might be to sell a lot of their assets to Saudi. I see top Western clubs paying in the East in the not. Yeah, exactly. Would you be surprised if United? Would you be surprised if United? I think one of the things about the Qatari deal, the rumor was that that they would have the Glazers could take their could have investments or stocks in that potentially. Jarvis says, who will get the most assists next season? Who will get the most assists next season? I'm gonna say, and again we'll talk about the season review, and I'm interested in what Tom thinks. I'm gonna say Bruno. I'm gonna say Bruno for Manchester United. Personally, I would tune in and watch Saudi. That's what I'm saying. Like, if nothing else is on, like, it's like, let's say, for example, is if I don't know, United aren't playing, it's a Cup game. We barely, especially in the UK, when the stupid 3 o'clock kickoff time thing happens, where you can't watch anything, and you tell me there's a Saudi Pro League game on, yeah, I'll tune in and watch it, because I can't watch 3 p.m. football, unfortunately, because of the way the UK is. So, yeah, if there's nothing else on, and, Syria and the rest of the teams are not, there's nothing, none of the big teams are really sort of playing, I will probably tune into it, just if anything, to see how Tellez, Ronaldo, Bailly, and other sort of ex-players are kind of doing, Of course they could, yeah, look at Red Bull. It won't be Rashford, fact. The best footballers is where the money is. In 10 years' time, Saudi can want to. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, like, it's not a, like, fundamentally, and this is that I'm not watching Saudi. No, it's more like, it's not that, it's one of those things where I would probably put it on as background, like, as in, it's not like I'm watching intensely to be like, who's going to win, who's going to be more like, there's no football on, but they're showing the Saudi Pro League, and I know some of the players, so I'll just put it on in the background. It's kind of like my stance to Saudi League at present. But as Jarvis Cooker says, the best football in the West money is in 10 years' time. So that's the thing. It's going to be a short-term, it's going to be a long-term plan. This is not like a short-term where I think, which is the difference between China and USA. China and USA just went for like signing big stars on a short term, but had no real long-term plan regarding the infrastructure for their respective teams, and obviously domestic league. Which, like I said, in fairness, Saudi did dunk on Argentina in the World Cup, and those were all domestic. I think most of them anyway were domestic players. So I actually think that Saudi Arabia are actually a better footballing nation than a lot of. They won the Asian Cup a while back. They're actually one of the better Asian footballing nations. Actually, like they're. I mean, I know they didn't qualify from the group; they're not a tough group, but yeah, they're no slouches compared to, say, Iran, Iraq, the others. Even to a certain extent, I think they could probably go toe to toe the likes of South Korea and Japan. So they're not. They have more. That's why I was always kind of like, it would even have made more sense for Saudi to host the World Cup than Qatar, because Qatar has zero, football World Cup heritage. But Saudi Arabia, if you look into it, they do. So it made more sense that way. But it is what it is. Is what it is. Big T says watching Saudi would be like repeatedly watching CC put the burgers at Richard Bottom the way it's going. That's fair. Right, guys, I need to bounce, guys. It's been late. It's been good. It's been fine. Thank you for tuning in, guys. Remember, if you are new to channel, like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. I love these weekly Q&As because they're a lot of laid back. They're chilled. That's the point of them. To be laid back, chilled, for you to kind of relax on the Friday before the weekend and just chill. So I appreciate it. If you are new, remember to like and subscribe. Obviously, follow us on Twitter and Twitch. Like I said, I'll be doing the watch-alongs from the beginning of the season on Twitch exclusively. So if you want to catch the watch-alongs, follow me on Twitch. The link is in the description. United form will be back, not next week, but the week after, I think. And make sure you check out our second channel, Red Marvel, where hopefully tomorrow I'll actually be able to post my Oppenheimer review. But yeah, guys, have a good weekend. Take care and cheers. Peace, peace, peace.